If a student marrying his teacher or a congressman meeting his future wife while she's still in high school has you raising an eyebrow, you're certainly not the only one. Karoline Leavitt is the youngest press secretary in American history, stepping into the role in 2025 at the age of 27. And she's not just younger than all of her predecessors. She's also 32 years younger than her husband, Nicolas Riccio. Leavitt doesn't talk about him publicly all that much, though. She once told her Instagram followers, "He doesn't have social media and he's an introvert. I respect his privacy on here, but he's my #1 fan, the best dad, and just the best man I've ever met." Even though Leavitt hasn't even turned 30 yet, she's already built up a lengthy political resume. She previously worked in Donald Trump's first administration as a speechwriter, and she unsuccessfully ran for Congress during the years between his 2 presidential terms. That failed campaign left Leavitt with major financial problems, but Trump hired her for his new administration anyway. He said in a statement, "Karoline is smart, tough, and has proven to be a highly effective communicator. I have the utmost confidence she will excel at the podium." As of 2025, Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell is one of the oldest senators currently serving in Congress. He's experienced a number of health problems in recent years, including appearing to freeze up during multiple press conferences due to lightheadedness. In February 2025, he even fell down the stairs at the Capitol building and ended up in a wheelchair, though his staff insisted that he was fine. As for McConnell's personal life, he's been married to his second wife, Elaine Chao, who's 11 years his junior since 1993. Chao has a political career of her own, having served under multiple presidents. Most recently, she was Donald Trump's Secretary of Transportation during his first administration. Outside of her work in the White House, Chao is also one of her husband's staunchest supporters and biggest teasers. When he won re-election in 2014, she spoke at a victory rally and joked, "Mitch couldn't be more grateful for your support, and I couldn't be more grateful that Mitch will have something to do that will keep him busy for the next 6 years."
I mean, I love the man, but I don't want him home for lunch every day.
Donald Trump has been married 3 times. His first wife, Ivana Trump, was the mother to Donald Jr., Eric, and Ivanka. While still married to Ivana, Donald had an affair with Marla Maples. They eventually married and had a daughter named Tiffany. He married his third and current wife, Melania, in 2005, and their son Barron was born the following year. They met at a Fashion Week party in the late 90s, although Melania had no idea who Donald was at the time. She wrote in her memoir, "I recognized the name and I knew he was a businessman or celebrity, but not much else." Donald is 24 years older than Melania, but that hasn't stopped her from fiercely defending her husband, even when they supposedly disagree. For example, she has insisted that she doesn't support her husband's stance on abortion, writing in her memoir, "Restricting a woman's right to choose whether to terminate an unwanted pregnancy is the same as denying her control over her own body. I have carried this belief with me throughout my entire adult life."
Yes, he knew my position and my beliefs since the day we met.
Of course, despite the fact that Supreme Court justices appointed by her husband were responsible for the overturning of Roe v. Wade, Melania supported his campaign to return to the White House. The most extreme age gap on this list belongs to Congressman John Rose, a Republican from Tennessee, and his wife Chelsea. When they got married, he was 45, and she was in college. Details about their initial meeting aren't that publicly well known, but they seem to have first crossed paths several times while she was still a teenager. In 2007, there was an article about Chelsea in the Eagleville Times paper. She was in high school and president of Future Farmers of America, a student-led nonprofit organization. According to that article, Chelsea met John at an FFA convention, where he previously served as a board member. 3 years later, she told the Murfreesboro Post that he had given her a generous scholarship named after his parents. She revealed, "Through the scholarship that he provides, I've not had to have a job through college. I've been able to train, improve, focus on FFA, and focus on school. That scholarship has made all the difference. He has also coached me during my preparation, which has been extremely helpful." But some of John's constituents don't seem to be fans of his marriage. When he wished Chelsea a happy anniversary on Facebook in 2019, multiple comments referred to him as a groomer. Former Congressman Newt Gingrich has a history of leaving his wives for newer, younger ones. In the late 90s, when he was one of the leading voices pursuing impeachment charges against President Bill Clinton in the midst of the latter's affair with Monica Lewinsky, Gingrich was having an affair of his own. He'd left his first wife, Jackie, in 1981, while she was sick with cancer, to marry a woman named Marianne Ginther. By the early 90s, he'd embarked on what would become a 6-year affair with Calista, a woman 23 years his junior. They married in 2000.
Oh, he was asking to have an open marriage, and I refused.
Gingrich acknowledged his own hypocrisy during a 2007 interview with Focus on the family's James Dobson. As he put it, "There were times when I was praying and when I felt I was doing things that were wrong, but I was still doing them. I look back on those as periods of weakness and periods that I'm not only not proud of, but I would deeply urge my children and grandchildren not to follow in my footsteps." While Newt is no longer in Congress, Calista has gone on to have a political career of her own. During Donald Trump's first administration, she was named ambassador to Vatican City. And when Trump returned to office in 2025, he named her ambassador to Switzerland. In 2024, Donald Trump nominated Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz to be his next attorney general. But Gaetz was also under investigation by the House Ethics Committee for a number of indiscretions, including allegedly paying a 17-year-old for sex. He ultimately withdrew his name from consideration and decided not to return to Congress.
And there's a sense of relief about it, of course.
The committee's report was released anyway, finding substantial evidence that Gaetz had indeed paid a minor for sex. The investigation didn't seem to faze his wife Ginger, though. Upon the announcement of his withdrawal, she posted a photo of the two of them on the Capitol steps, along with the caption, "The end of an era." Matt and Ginger, who's 12 years his junior, have been together since 2020. When they met at a fundraiser at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort, they were engaged by the end of the year when she was 26 and he was 38. American politicians aren't the only ones with significant age gaps. Marcela Temer was a supermodel before she married former Brazilian President Michel Temer. By the time he took office in 2016, she was 33, and he was 75. As you might expect, their massive age gap made international headlines. So too did Marcela's behavior while her husband was in office. She was roundly criticized for her extravagant spending. During his inauguration, Brazilian observers expressed their disgust for her lifestyle, with one reportedly saying, "Great! Now there's no hope for reducing the national debt. Her expenses will see to that." The population was already familiar with her behavior, it seems, thanks to her husband's stint as vice president. When he first took office, Marcela reportedly insisted on multi-million-dollar renovations to the couple's residence before she would move in, with taxpayers footing the bill. The headlines Marcela generated while her husband was in office weren't all bad, though. In 2018, for example, she jumped into a lake to rescue her Jack Russell Terrier after he tried to attack some ducks, and then couldn't get out of the water. Brazilian commenters made jokes about that too. Blogger Jose Simão tweeted, "Marcela's dog tried to commit suicide. It couldn't put up with Temer." Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy made international headlines when he married supermodel and singer Carla Bruni-Sarkozy in 2008. The French press became obsessed with whether or not the relationship would last. After all, he's 13 years older, and she was used to the fast-paced, jet-setting lifestyle typical of modeling, but they've managed to stick it out thus far, remaining together even after he lost re-election. In a 2013 interview with The Guardian, Bruni-Sarkozy revealed how she won him over the night they met. "I wanted to show him I was a poet, eh? Poet he never had. Third marriage, but with a poet, no? I'm not Yeats, but I still try, I try to write my poetry." Bruni-Sarkozy had previously been in relationships with musicians like Mick Jagger, so she was prepared for the whirlwind that she found herself wrapped up in. As she put it, "I was actually happy, because that famous thing really helped me through the time that my husband was the president."
I wouldn't choose this type of jobs or this type of life if I wanted to be anonymous.
Nevertheless, she said she had to straighten up her act when she and Sarkozy got together. "There is no way to be funny anymore. Fun doesn't really work with this kind of position, so I couldn't play around." Sarkozy isn't the only French president with a serious age gap, but in the case of Emmanuel Macron, the age gap goes in the other direction. His wife Brigitte is 24 years his senior. They actually first met when she was his high school teacher. His parents actually had to send him away to boarding school in an effort to separate the two. As Brigitte recalled to Paris Match magazine, "For me, such a young boy was crippling. Emmanuel had to leave for Paris. I told myself that he would fall in love with someone his own age. It didn't happen. Instead, they stayed in touch and reconnected romantically, eventually marrying in 2007 when Macron was 29. During the wedding, he told his 3 new stepchildren, "Thanks for accepting us, a not quite normal couple." Brigitte supports her husband's political career, and she knew that he was destined for greatness. As she put it, "I had many brilliant pupils, and none had his capability. I have always admired him." Joe Biden is 9 years older than his wife Jill. When they met in the 1970s, Joe was already a senator, and Jill was initially hesitant to date the man who would eventually become her husband. She recalled at a fundraising event in 2023, "It was Vietnam, love beads, equal rights. I wore my hair down to the middle of my waist, and so did most of the men I dated. But then came Joe." Jill admitted, "One day, I was asked out on a date from out of the blue, and that evening, a handsome young senator showed up at my door. I took one look at his perfect suit and his leather loafers, and I thought, thank God it's only one date."
I thought, oh gosh, this guy's going to be kind of stiff, but but he wasn't. He really wasn't.
They've been together ever since, with Jill sticking by Joe's side even as questions swirled about whether or not he was too old to run for re-election in 2024. At a Seniors for Biden event that June, she told the crowd, "Joe Biden is a healthy, wise, 81-year-old, ready and willing to work for you every day to make our future better. Joe isn't one of the most effective presidents of our lives in spite of his age, but because of it.